Hey there, this is Tim from Truphae in another of our fountain pen videos, and I'm here to talk to you today about what might be the most important fountain pen accessory of all. In another of our videos, I talked about the difference between nibs manufactured in various parts of the world. And in that video, I said that the nib is where all the magic of a fountain pen happens. Now that is still true, but the reason it is true is greatly influenced by the paper you use when you're writing with your fountain pen. And that's why I think that paper may be the most important fountain pen accessory of all. If you're new to the fountain pen world, then you might be thinking at this point, well, paper is paper. And you're right. A good ballpoint pen can write on just about anything. But a fountain pen is going to respond very differently to the type, the quality, and the weight, yes, the weight of paper, in ways that can be pretty dramatic. And that's what we're going to talk about. First, let's do just a quick overview of paper. I have a lot of it here with me today. The first thing is going to be very familiar to most people. This is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of 20-pound copier paper. I have this A5 notepad from Rhodia, another A5 notepad from Clairefontaine, and A4 notepad from Clairefontaine, and this wonderful A5 Tomoe River notebook. Now, if you were paying attention just now, you noticed that I described this paper in a way that may be very different and new to you. In the United States, we're accustomed to talking about paper in size by inches and in weight. So 8.5 by 11, 20-pound copier paper. The United States, Canada, and parts of Mexico use a system like that, but the rest of the world uses a completely different system. And that's the system as a fountain pen user that you're going to want to know a little bit about. So let's take a little closer look at what I mean with those letters and numbers. There are many size classes in this worldwide system, usually designated by letters like A, B, C, and so forth. But we're only going to talk about one size class today, and that is A. One of the first things to know is that the size class A is always paired with a number, and that the smaller the number, the larger the paper size. So for instance, A0 is a much larger size piece of paper than A5. Let me show you what I mean. Here is a really helpful chart of the size classes and how they work. So as you can see, an A0 piece of paper is 841 by 1,189 millimeters, or 33.1 by 46.8 inches, and an A5 page is 14.8 by 21 millimeters, or 5.8 by 8.3 inches. If that is a bit overwhelming, don't worry about it. For the most part, as a fountain pen user, your happy spot is going to be A4 or A5. So we've talked about the size A4 and A5, but another important aspect is the weight of the paper. For those of us in the United States, Canada, and parts of Mexico, I'm going to go back to this 8.5 by 11 sheet of 20-pound copier paper. This is standard paper. You're used to using it all the time. But what does 20 pound even mean? Well, 500 sheets of this paper would weigh 20 pounds. So if you were using 30-pound copier paper, which is much thicker than this, then that would mean 500 sheets of that paper would weigh 30 pounds. For the rest of the world, it's a little simpler, but the measurements they use might not be familiar to you. So with a notepad like this Rhodia, it is described as an A5 pad of 80 G/m squared. So what is that? Well, that's grams per meter squared, or sometimes just written GSM. So an A5 pad of 80 GSM would mean that 100 sheets of this paper would weigh 80 grams. And so a notepad like this Clairefontaine that is an A5 90 GSM, and you guessed it, 100 sheets of this paper would weigh 90 grams. So what is the difference in weight? Well, I'm glad you asked that. The difference can be the amount of smoothness a paper has, the ability to absorb just the right amount of ink, a little more here, a little less there. And then this is where personal preference can come in. Some people would prefer the way fountain pen ink goes onto this 80 GSM paper versus this Clairefontaine 90 GSM notebook. Now, there are a lot of high-quality paper manufacturers in the stationery world. I mean, a lot. But to keep things a little less overwhelming, I'm going to narrow things down today to 2 paper types and 3 manufacturers. And they are Clairefontaine, Rhodia, and Tomoe River, which is both a manufacturer and a paper type. Now, why these 3? Well, that's easy. They will all deliver a beautiful quality writing experience, and they're pretty much universally available. You should be able to find all of these in any high quality stationery or fountain pen store. Now, Rhodia wins the prize for me for the greatest variety of design types in high quality paper. They have a notebook or a notepad for just about anything and any need and in any size. Now, a lot of Rhodia's paper is 80 GSM, but not all of it. Most of it is just a pure white or bleached, but they also offer unbleached or cream, and they offer a paper in 90 GSM. Now, Clairefontaine doesn't have as much variety as Rhodia, although they do have a lot. There's a lot of Clairefontaine styles, but most of their paper is 90 GSM. I happen to prefer it. It's my favorite, but I'm also really happy to write on anything that Rhodia makes. It's really up to you and how your fountain pen feels on each of these kinds of paper. And finally, I want to talk to you just a little bit more about this Tomoe River. This happens to be an A5 size notebook. Tomoe River paper is made in Japan, and it is an extraordinary paper. It's beautiful, it's fountain pen friendly, it's durable, but its most extraordinary property is how light and thin it is. Again, this is an A5 notebook from Tomoe River. This is an A5 notebook from Rhodia. As you can see, they're the same size, both A5s, right? But the Tomoe River paper has 360 sheets versus 80 sheets in the Rhodia. Let me say that again. This Tomoe River A5 notebook has 360 sheets versus the 80 sheets in the Rhodia. Now, does that make the Rhodia bad? No, but it is remarkable how light and thin Tomoe River paper is, especially for how beautifully it performs with fountain pens. Now, you may have heard me talk about bleached versus non-bleached or white and cream paper, and all of these manufacturers have notebooks both ways. So there are white Rhodia, Clairefontaine, Tomoe River paper notebooks and tablets, and there are cream-colored Rhodia, Clairefontaine, Tomoe River tablets. I mention it because the fountain pen ink is going to display a little differently whether or not the paper is white or cream. That seems obvious. If you'd like to see a video of a demonstration of that, please let me know in the comments below. I'd be happy to make that for you. So, can a fountain pen user write on standard US copier paper? Well, sure. If that's all you have, go right ahead. It will work, but it will not be nearly the experience that writing on a fine Rhodia tablet or Clairefontaine notebook or Tomoe River notebook would be. And you're also going to discover a really interesting thing when you take that fine Japanese nib, that fine line writer, and put it on a piece of US copier paper. How much thicker that line is, I think will really surprise you. Thank you for spending the time with me today. It's been a pleasure. If you'd like to see that video of a demonstration of fountain pen ink on bleached versus non-bleached paper, I'd be happy to do that. Just let me know in the comments below. And if there's another subject you'd love covered or something you want to know a little more about, let me know in the comments. Please consider subscribing so that you'll know when the next video goes live. It's always a pleasure to spend this time with you today. This is Tim at Truphae. Happy writing.